Roger Urbaniak. For the last 20 plus years, I've been working, spent a lot of time working with salmon in several different capacities. I mean, just at the Issaquah hatchery, I started out with just being a docent, taking kids around, evolved into helping them harvest the salmon, and then eventually got involved with a group that I'm now in charge of, where we are able to get eggs from the Issaquah hatchery and take them out to different streams and see how those streams perform in terms of allowing salmon to come back every year and complete their life cycle.
Right.
And what I continue to do in order to be effective in my stream work and working with the salmon is I need to understand why they're not coming back to some streams and are coming back to others, and what impacts their numbers. And so I have different ways of doing research. I have some of my remote sites that I take the eggs to are ponds that I'm able to raise the salmon for a whole year before I release them, and so that they're a much larger size fish when they enter Lake Washington. They don't stay in Lake Washington as long. They're able to go out to saltwater, and a much higher percentage of those fish I've discovered are coming back to their home streams. They're able to escape the predation and be more successful coming back to lay their eggs in the wild. And other research that I do is I have this little pond here that basically I have eggs in the pond which are going to hatch. Last year was the first year I tried it. I wanted to see how temperature impacted them, because the temperature that this pond is only like 2 feet deep at its deepest, and I try to get fresh water involved to oxygenate it, etc. And at the end of the year, I thought I just put a few eggs in there, and I was really surprised that I had 26 salmon that were swimming around my pool, at the end of August, and some of them, had grown to like 6 inches, 6+ inches long.
Wow.
And so I took and I put them into a bucket and decided, okay, you're on your way. And I took them down to Lake Washington and released them, and in an area that I've been fishing a lot, so to remove a lot of the predators, to clear the path for them.
Yeah.
And expected those salmon to come back. They can't come back to this pond, but they should be able to find their way to Lake Washington and ultimately choose what stream they want to come back and lay their eggs in. And as a result of the work that I've been doing for the past 20 plus years through the Issaquah hatchery and Fish and Wildlife, we actually, as a direct result, there's been a fishery for coho salmon in Lake Washington solely because of my efforts. And so now what I'm doing is I'm trying to take the knowledge that I've gained by working with the coho salmon in the different streams and situations that they've been put in, and apply that to helping the sockeye salmon population to come back to Lake Washington, because the numbers that of returning fish has just plummeted over the last 10 or 15 years, and it's nowhere near the numbers that they need to have a fishery. And for some reason, all of the different parties that are involved, Fish and Wildlife, the Muckleshoot Tribe, Seattle Public Utilities, Army Corps of Engineers, the Lockmaster, etc. Nobody can kind of individually work out the mechanism that needs to be in place to successfully have the salmon come back. I've spent the past several months doing everything from looking at the local watershed that flows down through the Issaquah hatchery, reviewing the hatchery, attending lectures. I've gone out to lectures by the Muckleshoots, lectures that Fish and Wildlife have put on. I've gone out to the Ballard Locks where the fish ladder is, and attended meetings that Seattle Public Utilities have to update each other on what's being done. Mm-hmm. And as a result of doing that, I have a number of suggestions that I'd like to make that I think are necessary before the sockeye come back. And I've been working with Seattle Public Utilities and the tribes and the the Muckleshoot Nation and etc. to get their collective thoughts and try to implement that into what needs to be done. And so I've got some thoughts that ultimately I'm going to get some publicity for and see if I can't get everybody on the same page to working on the same solution. There's problems out there with predation. There's problems out there with water temperature, etc. And everybody has to be on the same page in trying to correct those problems before we're going to have a viable salmon situation. So that's where I'm coming from. I could use some help, from in a number of different ways. If you're interested in participating, please get in touch with me. My contact information I try to have online in terms of my email or cell phone. I'm usually pretty easy to get in touch with, through Fish and Wildlife or Seattle Public Utilities, etc.
So in a nutshell, you basically want to convey, or basically develop, document and convey specific suggestions that you have been successful in your experience with the Coho fishery.
Mm-hmm. To a certain degree. There's a little bit different situation. Coho, have differences in there. A 3-year returning fish that only spends 1 year in fresh water before they go out to spend 2 years in salt water. The sockeye are a 4-year fish that needs to spend about 1.5 years in fresh water before they go out. And because of the additional time that sockeye have to spend in fresh water, they're exposed to freshwater predation a lot more than my coho are. And so some of the suggestions that I make to the people that are in charge of the sockeye situation have to do with how do you handle that additional exposure to predation in Lake Washington and over that extended period of time.
Right.
But to a certain extent, much of what I've learned has been through my hands-on working with coho, both at the stream level, at the hatchery level, and doing my own backyard research. So.
Cool.